Traveling the Vortex.
Hello!
And welcome to Traveling the Vortex. I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
And welcome to this week's episode. Well, let's start off a little bit.
We sound like a comedy troupe.
We do.
We're the Smothers Brothers.
Sometimes we are.
Hello. Little Three Stooges of it. All right, so well, let's talk about news this week. We had very little news this last week. Well, actually, we had no news last week, but this week, a little bit in the news. Talk a little bit about it. It's not going to be anything profound. A lot of people know about this, but I did see that Torchwood Miracle Day is now officially filming in the U.S.
Yay!
And so they're off the ground and running. And they actually, on their Twitter feed, they've been doing updates as they're filming. And they'll make little mentions on there. So it's kind of fun to watch and see, who's on the set that day and what's going on. And so I'm pretty excited, very stoked that they're going to...
And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time in the history of the show that Torchwood has filmed in the United States.
That's correct, yeah. In all three seasons prior. In the 3 seasons prior, there was no...
It's never been done before.
I have no
Old
basis
credits.
for Torchwood, so yeah.
Well,
Okay. It was a Doctor Who thing. It's a spin-off.
I know.
Damn.
So, there's just a little bit of Torchwood news there, nothing much going on. But I think the biggest news, and I think now we talked about this before, but at the time that it first broke, it was a blurb in the Daily Mail in the UK, which, as most people know, is kind of the equivalent of the Sun in the UK and the Post here in the United States, it's a tabloid. But it is now official that David Tennant, Dr. Ten, and Georgia Moffat, the Doctor's daughter, are officially engaged. They have set a wedding date, tentatively, I believe, for...
I know you didn't mean to do that, but God, he said it and I couldn't help it. I just broke.
Tentatively. Yes.
Tentatively.
For which, and I don't know if this changes based on this next bit of information that came out, but at the time, the floated rumored date was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day of this next year, or New Year's Eve of this year, 31st or the 1st, whichever one. Is the date for the wedding. But a kink has been kind of thrown in there, and obviously she's been pregnant for some time, but Georgia Moffat is pregnant. They've confirmed that. Quite pregnant. At last I saw, I think she's 5 months along, so we're looking at probably a summer baby, or at least early fall. And there's some speculation out there might be twins in there, because she is a small girl, and she's got quite... the bump, but
she almost looks like Amy.
Yeah,
in Amy's Choice.
She looks a lot further along than 5 months, if you ask me. But so there's the rumor that she could be having twins, which I think would be kind of cool. There's all kinds of jokes out there for that. Because the Doctor's daughter could be having the Doctor's daughter. If it's twins, there is the twin dilemma. So
I hadn't heard any of this.
There is a lot out there that could be speculated on.
And poor Keith is lost. He has
I have no idea. Okay.
Keith's gone, but congratulations to David Tennant and Georgia Moffat. Now, Keith, just so you know, a little history here. Georgia Moffat played, and you'll see this episode, but we're going to spoil this a little bit. She plays the Doctor's daughter, Ten's daughter, and you'll find out why. In one of the episodes, in one of Tennant's episodes in the 4th series. Fourth. It was Donna and...
Was it Donna?
Donna and Martha. That's where you're getting confused.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Martha
You're right.
takes the jaunt with them. So, in the 4th season, she plays the Doctor's daughter. In real life, however, she is the daughter of Peter Davison, who played the 5th Doctor in the series. So, you've got the Doctor's daughter, the Doctor marrying the Doctor's daughter, and the Doctor's daughter. So,
her last name is Moffat?
Her last name is Moffat. I believe it's... I don't know.
No
if it's
relation?
I don't know. No, not to Stephen. Yeah,
Which
not
we
even
thought- I
not
thought
even to
initially.
Peter. Yeah, and I thought the same thing too. But not even to Peter Moffat, who also was a script writer on Doctor Who at one time.
Yes.
So I guess Moffat must be a...
Must be like Smith.
And I don't know if she's taken Mom's name because I believe Peter Davison and her mom are divorced, but I don't know how it works, but I think it's a quasi-stage name that, so she's at least removed from Peter Davison as far as, her mom and dad are both actors. So she's got acting in her blood. She's, they've passed the torch on. She's gone into acting based on her background, but I don't know if that was something that she did so that she wasn't riding the coattails of dad or something. So I'm sure somebody knows and could send us feedback to fill us in a little more there. But she is actually Peter Davidson, who played the Fifth Doctor, who has been in the new series of Doctor Who, which we'll get to at some point as well. And actually, it's my understanding that last year for Gallifrey, the big convention that they do out in L.A., Peter Davison was originally slated to be a guest. And what happened was he had to pull out because of other commitments at the last minute. So what he did is he sent a video explaining, wish I could be there. It would be really exciting to meet all you. Going to try and do it next year. And I guess in this clip, a video, in the door comes David Tennant. And because they had worked together and they were very good friends and obviously a little more better acquainted than anybody knew at the time. But he comes in the door and they do a little skit together, which I guess was just a riot. And everybody at Gallifrey just went crazy because not only is Peter Davison phoning in a sorry I couldn't make it, but there's David Tennant in this same clip. And so I guess that was really cool. So people are curious based on their relationship now because Peter Davison will be at Galley this year, next month. So some people are speculating again that David Tennant may appear in some form or another, whether it be video clip or what. But so I guess that'll be told, and hopefully some of the other podcasters and fans that are headed out to Gallifrey next month will fill us in. And of course, we'll live vicariously through them because we'll be tuning into their reports to find out what's going on there. So, but again, congratulations to David Tennant and Georgia Moffat. That's awesome. I'm stoked that they've gotten together, and they're both very handsome people, and they're going to have a very, very attractive child or children sometime. So, moving along, this is out of news, but just a little discussion, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. But I'm very excited that. We live in the Midwest, so Doctor Who, as far as merchandising, for some reason it's just a little dry. It's a little few and far between here.
Except for new series.
Except for new series.
You
can't
can find all
new
sorts
series.
of new series stuff.
Absolutely, which is
along
great.
with action figures.
Yeah, which is great. And I think that, obviously the tout of that is the fact that it's become very popular with fans in the U.S., thanks to Sci-Fi, thanks to BBC America, thanks to even some great cross-promoting. Craig Ferguson's now had 2 actors, so it's getting more and more popular here. But classic Doctor Who is just very hard to find. I've been to Best Buy, very few episodes of Doctor Who there. I've been to several other retailers in town, even some of the used stores. Very hard to find DVDs here. And so I had been breaking down and going to the internet in order to be my source and ordering things. And today I walked into Barnes & Noble because a couple of weeks ago you had talked about buying the Beginnings box set at Barnes & Noble. You had some money to burn. And so I went to Barnes & Noble today just to see what was there, and you didn't let me in on the fact that there's a ton of Doctor Who DVDs there. So that's my mother load. I've tapped into the mother load now.
I was concerned for your well-being. I didn't want you
and
to.
your families.
Yeah.
Make sure the electricity bill gets paid.
Well, it may not now because I may be stocking up on Doctor Who DVDs.
And yeah, Barnes & Noble is really, if you have one and have access to it, one of the things, and I used to tell people this even back in my vaunted video store days, when I was jockeying the counter, Barnes & Noble definitely has almost everything you're looking for. The one downside of Barnes & Noble is that, you're going to pay full price for it.
It is pricey. They
even more than full price, you'll be playing close to the MSRP on it.
Yeah, well, and probably the MSRP. Barnes & Noble isn't the place you go to look for DVDs, and it's not the place you go look for discount DVDs. And because I think their selection is so eclectic, they
where
obviously
you find specialty.
Exactly,
Yeah.
They charge that to recoup a lot of that cost.
But they have a card.
They have a card.
They have a card. You can pay $25 a year for the Barnes & Noble card. Get you 10% off everything in the store.
Oh, well, I may have to do that.
You don't want to do it.
Right now, if I paid $25 and I got my 10% off, There's also some of those DVDs there that are 10% off, so that I'm sure applies to that.
Yeah.
It does.
And right now they're running a sale. You buy 2 DVDs, you get 1 for free at obviously equal or lesser cost.
Now,
So
you didn't tell me this.
I could be. I could be cleaning up at Barnes & Noble very soon.
I used to have a card, and religiously, because I love Barnes & Noble. I love bookstores. Bookstores and hardware stores. I love the smells.
Well, I think we're all sort of a bibliophiles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I finally sat down one day and did the math on $25 a year for 10% off. That means I have to buy $250 worth of books. Now, if I had $250 to blow on books every year, I certainly would, because, as you mentioned, we just, the printed word, I love it. I've got hardbacks, I've got soft covers, I love to read. I'm constantly reading something. But that was a little daunting. I don't buy $250 a year in books.
Yeah.
And even at the...
You
ever
easily
go back
could,
and
as
calculate?
expensive
I
as
could.
some books are. But
Even at the higher price DVD points, I don't think I buy $250 worth of DVDs from Barnes & Noble every year. So I backed off of the
as
card,
we
but-
mentioned, they're very expensive there too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
But I do love Barnes & Noble. But fortunately, there's a place where I get books for free. I have to return them a few weeks later. But
About
it's,
3, but...
yeah, and it's great. So anyway, so this leads into our next. I promised there was a segue here going to the Barnes & Noble route because
I heard
poll
we were doing an
results.
ad.
Poll results this week. Poll results. Keith, you'd like to the poll results? Where are we at? We got
quite a few votes, more than last time. I think we got 7 votes this time.
Woo!
We got 1 dissenter in the ranks that said no. The rest said yes. So
the poll this week essentially said, after we watch, or after Keith watches The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, do you want us to go back and review some of the old Solarian episodes? Which, to my knowledge, just off the top of my head, there's 3 that I know of: Doctor Who and the Solarians, the Sea Devils, and the Warriors of the Deep. And so I believe what we're going to do is we're going to attempt this. Now, this is why this segues. I looked for all 3 of those episodes there. They aren't carrying any of them at Barnes & Noble, so we may have to either go online or find another way to get our episodes to review.
I did also some research into this area and found one on eBay,
Oh, terrific.
new, for about $40.
But not the box set, because...
It is the box set.
Oh, it is. See, because I was under the impression it wasn't released in a box set in the UK, or in the US.
It was, yes.
Oh, terrific. Okay, well, good.
Yes.
Well, maybe that's the route we'll go.
Although, as posted on our site via, and I'm going to screw it up now and forget, the Gallifrey News page?
Doctor Who News page,
Doctor Who
which
News
is
page.
Gallifrey 1. It is,
Gallifrey
it's-
1,
yeah.
okay. It was a wonderful site if nobody else is out there doing that.
Great source
Really, really great source.
of news, yeah.
To Entertain has announced their lineup of classic Who videos getting the reissue. It's weird that they're still videos. Yeah.
Digital video disc.
Yeah, okay. That are going to be coming out this year, that are revamped and remastered and special editioned. And Sea Devils was one of them, wasn't it?
No, I don't believe it was.
Oh, well, then there was no point to that story.
Yeah,
So.
Sea Devils has been out. In fact, I think it came out either last year or the year prior to that.
Spearhead.
Yeah.
Spearhead from Space.
Spearhead
is
from
one thing.
Space
Now, who was
is,
the band
yes.
in Spearhead?
That would be the Autons. That's Pertwee's first episode.
Yeah,
I
you're
believe,
right, okay.
If I remember this right.
Yeah, Spearhead is the first. And people are out there
yeah.
screaming, going, "Why do I listen to these people?"
Well, that's why we rely on you for feedback. Tell us if we're wrong, because we want to know. But anyway, so we'll have to see about getting the Solarian box set or those DVDs anyway. And
Now, just for the
go back
record,
and look at those.
the show title, Traveling the Vortex, we'd always intended on going back
Yes.
and forward and
Yes.
back and
Back and
forward, and
forward.
just
Hence the
bouncing
title.
around all
Hence
over
the
the
title,
place.
yeah.
And reviewing classic episodes as well as new, so that Keith kind of gets a well-rounded Who universe. And you made the comment to me that you kind of have already latched on to Matt Smith as, quote, your doctor.
Well, yeah, and I've mentioned on the show and the fact that I really started watching Doctor Who with Matt Smith, so he is going to be my doctor. And having not watched more than a couple episodes of Tennant, at this point, I don't see how any other doctor can be as fun to watch. as Matt Smith.
Yeah.
But that's a little biased.
We'll make you suffer through them, and we'll see where
We'll see
Yeah,
where you
we'll
we'll
see.
see where you land.
And just for
Which
the
I
record,
did watch the Monster Files on the
Oh, did
DVD
you?
set for the Solarians. That way I didn't watch the next episode following because of the cliffhanger. So I watched that and they didn't talk too much about the history of the Solarians, but I saw some photos and video of them, and I'm kind of intrigued to see more. I mean,
So you're excited then to go back and see some
I'm interested
origins.
to go back and see.
Good.
I'm not expecting anything of this caliber. I'm expecting Star Trek, the original series, style sets and costumes, which never bothered me. I mean, I've always been
You're setting the bar a little high then if you're...
oh my.
I have never in my years of watching classic Doctor Who seen a wobbly set. However, that being said,
we know they're there.
the moniker, or not the moniker, but the labeling they get of wobbly sets and rubber monsters, the feel is there. And
Yeah.
so...
Which that feel
yeah.
never bothered me.
And running
so.
through corridors and seeing the same shot. From a different angle, running through the corridors.
Now, just for the
I mean,
record,
I grew up on the Universal monster movies, so
you'll be right at home with these
You will
things.
be
Yeah.
right at home. Yeah.
I did not vote in the poll this week.
I know Glenn
so
did.
I did vote in the poll.
I didn't either.
I did not want to taint the results.
So really, there were only 6 votes, but
Well, I did with the Weeping Angels poll because I did feel it was important that you watch the other ones and get some backstory.
Which I'm glad
on River.
that I did.
But this one I kind of wanted to leave it up to the true audience, and so you should stay away from the polls.
I am the true audience.
We're going to vote.
Dang
whichever
it!
way
I want to
we
go
want
back
them
and
to do
get
it.
pick up some classic.
And you know
Who.
what? If we get the wrong votes, we're just going to log into other computers and vote because we want to.
No, and I've always felt that the poll is really a general consensus that we obviously are the final arbitrators of what we watch. But I think that
I mean, there is some stuff that we may pose and then
You know
not
what
be
we're
able
gonna
to
decide
get those
against,
episodes.
yeah.
We're going to put a poll up the week that Doctor Who the movie comes out on DVD. Should we review this? And we're going to get this overwhelming slew of no's, and we're going to review.
we're going to do it anyway. Because by God, I've been waiting for years
I'm
to see
so ready.
a DVD release of Doctor Who the movie. Anyway, the only other notes
What is
that
our countdown on that? February.
let's see. It's you as excited as we are, you think we'd have the data marked on our calendars, but
24th?
I want it's mid February,
Mid to late February.
Yeah, I want to say like 15th or something. I mean, I think it's in the teens, but yeah. Oh, just a few weeks away. Probably close to when Galley is, which I think is the 18th.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah. So
They didn't do that.
no, I don't think they would have. Well, I think out around then, I believe is when. I don't think they'd do it the same.
Probably
day or
not
something.
related.
The only other thing I had to mention was I did while I was at Barnes & Noble, I saw one of my favorite episodes there, which I will eventually pick up, which was Meglos, which I believe
Really?
is relatively new released to the U.S. I know it just released in the U.K. last year, and they're very nearly releasing in the U.S. now, so I'm excited about that one, unless it's an old one that they haven't revisited, but I'm certain that it's...
Yeah, that was the
it's
funny
new.
thing, looking at that list from To Entertain, and I was kind of just mentally checking them off, and 90% of the list of ones that are being revisited and reissued this year are ones that I do already own.
Oh, is
and it's
that
like,
right?
Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
I couldn't get something a little new.
Well, the nice
including
thing
Vengeance on Varos, which I do own the original, and that's the one they decided not to do.
Yeah.
At least as of right
Yeah.
now. So
well, and the nice thing about that is you'll be able to sell the copies that you have
Yeah,
and get the copies with more
I wonder if I know anybody that would be interested.
features. Oh, I'm getting the ones with the new features. Don't look at me.
Just for the record, To Entertain, mark down, and I'll vote for Keith. Vote 3 yes votes for the release of Vengeance on Varos with Colin
No,
Baker
absolutely.
as a
Absolutely.
reissue, because I think it's important to do all of them, honestly.
Well, I'm
agree.
sure they're focusing on some of the more popular ones that have sold before,
It's a very
kind of as a basis, and then going back and picking up the rest.
Yeah.
it could be, and it's a very John Pertwee heavy year for the releases that they've got scheduled.
And I think part of the reason for that, and I could be just misspeaking here, but I think part of the reason for that is because there was so much Pertwee that was quasi part of the Slash. You know, back in the day when they went through and they just didn't have a lot of episodes of Hartnell, Troughton, and I think some of Pertwee suffered that as well. But I think what has happened is Pertwee episodes, fortunately, were held on when they had gone to worldwide distribution, and they're getting those copies back. And what they're doing is
Right.
they're retreating those, and they're trying to restore them to
and
their
that one is
closest
going to be
original.
a full color.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
they're
They've
restored now,
Yeah, they're restoring the color.
Because that wasn't unusual when they aired them. That one episode might be black and white, and one episode would be color.
Yeah,
one episode
absolutely.
Would be black and white, as they kind of bounce back.
Well,
and
they
forth
even
during
have
that.
some where the color chrome is just washed out of it because it's a third, fourth generation print of it.
Right.
And so what they've done is they're going back and they're touching those up as well, so you've got this equal color throughout them. So
Wouldn't it be cool if, like, somewhere in a salt mine, if they found prints of these old Doctor Who episodes? I mean, we keep hearing about they found this, they found that. I think it would be really
they've been looking for so long, though. I just think we've finally, if there were prints of Doctor Who still out there, I think we'd have found them by now. But
And we can hope.
we can always hope. All right, so moving into our reviews this week. This week on tap, we've got Vampires of Venice, Amy's Choice, and then, of course, the two-part Solarian episode, The Hungry Earth, and Cold Blood. So, Keith, you want to start us out on Vampires?
For those that need a refresher, the plot of Vampires of Venice
Spoilers.
is dissected corpses and terror in the canals. The Doctor takes Amy and Rory to 17th century Venice. And I was very apprehensive going into this because, just from what I've seen so far, vampires and Doctor Who just don't seem like they should coexist in the same world. So I was pleasant.
Sorry. Glenn shot me this look, and those of you that are in the know, were in the know, and we'll spoil him on that later.
Well, Glenn told me before
I've actually addressed it already.
but then he also explained to me that they weren't really vampires; they were aliens. So,
And they weren't really in the same world either.
No, parallel, or not parallel, alternate universe, yeah.
but so the fact that
E-space vampires.
E-space vampires.
the fact that they were these alien fish, I appreciated that they came up with another way to explain all the classic mythos of vampires. As far as the episode goes, I was kind of on it. Definitely not one of my favorites. I don't think it was horrible. It was still enjoyable to watch. But it was just kind of, There was some nice character development for Amy and the Doctor. But some parts of the episode just kind of stumbled for me.
Not one of my favorite episodes, but I'll tell you, it's probably one of my favorite pre-credit openers with Rory at the bachelor party.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all the guys are going around, the cake's wheeled in.
There were some great moments in this episode.
Who pops out of the cake? It's the Doctor. That was classic. I thought that was fantastic.
And then the fact that this was like his 6th cake he's popped out of.
Yeah, exactly.
And would somebody mind there's a lovely girl standing outside in a bikini? Somebody go give her a jumper.
That was what a wonderful opening to that. And the highlight of this episode to me is Rory.
Yeah, his interaction with the Doctor was fantastic.
Just the questioning that he had, just addressing the Doctor and saying, you put people in danger because you make them want to impress you. I thought that was quite a profound statement. And probably realistically true, especially in the new series. Amy is a different person, at least in her own mind, when she's with the Doctor. She's more bold. She's having this adventure. I think she's probably more brave. She's not as afraid to jump into the adventure or into the action or into danger. And perhaps it is what Rory says. Perhaps it is her trying to impress the Doctor. And I think even looking back on companions in the past, both new series and classic series, I also often wonder if that might be the case as well. And I think it really says something for the Doctor through the years as well. And just, Rory being there and not being so much the Mickey of the episodes, which is going to be, I'm jumping over to you here, Keith, but Mickey was a character that I just felt was underused and poorly written. Rory feels like, to me, the right way to use that type of character in the series. Sean, what did you think?
I agree. I think overall as an episode, it was okay. It had some great moments in it. The cake opening was certainly one of them. The little bits and pieces dealing with the vampires, specifically when the Doctor is looking in the mirror and there's no reflection and he keeps spinning around to look and then coming back to check. And just, again, Matt Smith's facial expressions that he's able to pull off with some of these
Well,
things.
and the way they explain that, too, about the...
But it wasn't
yeah.
just...
Yes, the image manipulator, or whatever they called it, that was putting forth their human-like image. It doesn't transcend and mirror, and so it was causing... And it's like you talked about how the mythos, how it explored some of the rationale for why, maybe the mythos came about with vampires. I like that aspect.
Just the idea of, as he said, what could possibly be so horrible that you'd actually be masquerading as a vampire and letting people believe that versus the truth.
Yeah.
It was really kind of an interesting take for it. I agree.
Oh, and then the line right when he's running away from them, "What's your plan?" One of these days that will work. He had some really good lines in this episode.
Some great lines.
And the slightly psychic paper, once again, pulling a wonderful bit with that. And the sonic screwdriver, once again, doing things that it probably shouldn't do.
Opening wooden gates.
There was a wooden gate. I'm not confused, right?
Yeah,
I
believe I remember that from this
I think
one,
I wanted to block that out. But I was pretty sure it was this episode that had the wooden door.
That
that uses
doesn't work
latches.
on wood.
But then 2 episodes later, he mentions that fact. Well, Sonic it doesn't work on wood.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So maybe there was some
Wibbly
metal.
wobbly, timey
Well,
wimey.
maybe there's some metal mechanisms in there or something.
I don't know. But overall, there were parts of this that I really, really enjoyed. Rory especially. I kind of was unsure initially. Definitely got a Mickey vibe. And no disrespect to Mickey, the character, or the actor that played him. I think Mickey as a character was set up to be the Tim Dog, as he put it.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
But you warmed to him as the show went on, and then he got a really great exit. I feel
absolutely. No, I would agree.
They totally redeemed his character
They sure
at the end
did.
of the second
They
season
sure did.
and beyond. But Rory in this one, he brought up the issues. How do you confront the other man, so to speak, in Amy's life, especially one who, he's got a spaceship. He can travel in time. He saves the universe again and again and again. How do you compete with that? And I thought Rory did it very, he did it head on. And what was it that he said about you kissed her back? No, I kissed her lips.
Yeah, that line just cracked me up. And then when he pulled out the lamp, the UV lamp,
Rory's got
yours
the
is bigger.
flashlight.
Don't get into this now.
Well, I love the fact that he's got not only is the TARDIS, what do they call it? What do they call them? Transcendental pockets or whatever he calls them. The coat has he pulls this lamp out of pockets that couldn't possibly hold.
Yeah.
The pockets are obviously bigger in the inside as well.
And then the whole interaction once he gets to the ship. Once Rory gets in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I rather like the bit where they say it's bigger on the inside.
Yeah. Which is a nice step away from that, and a way for the Doctor to be able to turn that around, or the writer of the script turn that around and say, well, I kind of quite like when they say it's bigger on the inside.
I think the best reaction to that was Tennant's when Martha was introduced to it originally. She goes inside, and they don't follow her. You just hear her go, "Oh, it's bigger on the inside," and David Tennant's mouthing the words on the outside of the TARDIS. And then he goes, "Is it?" And he turns around and goes inside, and it's just great to pull that and spin it differently.
And do a different take on that.
But we also liked that this was really kind of the first one where they've really kind of established that new. We've gotten glimpses of it in the previous episodes and certainly seen it, but this one they really kind of roamed all over the console room.
Well, that one, and I think,
and definitely in the
Amy's
next one.
Amy's choice much
really
more
showcased the TARDIS much more,
which I like. I really like the new console room. There were other parts of the episode that I didn't really care for. The whole climbing up to the top of the tower in the middle of a rainstorm to flip a switch.
Well, and the fact that all the Venetians were freaking out because it was raining. They didn't know what the plan was.
Yeah.
It just started raining.
Yeah.
Does it not rain
Well,
there?
you think in a city of water, you'd be used to a little rain, too. Even.
Maybe that's why they panicked.
Well, I suppose if it rains enough.
Oh, no, it's raining again. Mamma Mia's meatball shop. She's already underwater.
I just found the threats not very threatening.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to sink Venice, there's better ways to sink Venice than make it rain.
Flooding it, yeah. Well, that, and I don't feel like the monster was so menacing. The monsters were so menacing. I mean, they've got the men essentially in the water that they're
which you
feeding
never
the victims
see.
to. Right. They tried to use the off camera thrill of that, and I I don't know.
But
It didn't work.
After you see them in their true form,
Which also I thought the CGI on that was horrible.
yeah, and it just wasn't as threatening.
I'm not
Knowing,
sure.
okay, this is what they look like, and now there's just a bunch of them down there.
I'm gonna step out here. I'm not really sure what was worse: the CGI of the monster, which looked, and again, compared to classic Who, this was like, ooh, but
miles above.
just not quite there, or the son character in his normal garb, because he was really over the top with everything he did, and I enjoyed the sword fight with him and Rory, just because it finally, I mean, Rory gets to be
the hero
for a change, and I really liked that from the character development standpoint, and that Amy, kind of the pendulum swung back, that here's somebody who is really willing to fight for me because he loves me, and I mean, you kind of just see all that play across her face. So there are aspects of that I like.
It's an important pinnacle. This episode's an important pinnacle in Rory and Amy's relationship, or at least the starting of that pinnacle.
Well, in the next episode, it's even more so.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is what sets the wheels in motion, and then Amy's choice is what I think kind of changes the dynamic, or at least explores the dynamic of their relationship
quite a bit more.
What did you think of Amy's choice?
I enjoyed it. Let's go. For those that don't remember, it's been 5 years since Amy saw the doctor, and when he reappears, she faces a terrible choice. I thought this was a really...
That's the synopsis?
That's the synopsis.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't read the box set.
Liner notes.
That's kind of...
vague?
Yeah.
Yeah, initially I was very confused.
Based on the subject or the reveal of this episode, you couldn't get much more specific, though, about it.
Yeah, but... Really?
Well, Keith, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I like this one more than the Vampires of Venice. Still not really high up there on this season for me, but I still really enjoyed it. And it started a trend that I noticed in this one and then 2 episodes later that I hope doesn't become a constant trend, which I'll get to in a minute. But the fact that they're trying to figure out which reality is real, which is a dream and which isn't, the 5 years or the current time. And Toby Jones did a fantastic job in that role, which I've only seen him in one other role, but I thought he did really good. And the reveal at the end made the entire episode... Yeah, the Dream Lord. The reveal at the end made the entire episode worth the debate of which is real, which isn't, when it turns out they both aren't real.
Or the choices that they were forced to make. Yeah. All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just Amy's choice, although that's, I think, what this all revolves around. But it was Rory's choice, to do what he did to save Amy and the baby. It's the doctor's choice to essentially put it in her hands. We've got to figure this out. Of course, ultimately, there's a reason why.
And then the reveal that the Dream Lord is actually the darkness in the Doctor, and there isn't that kind of darkness in Amy and Rory.
Right.
And the thing, after seeing 2 episodes later, which this episode I kind of let it go, the fact that they killed Rory in one of the dreams, and Amy was so distraught over that, and that helped her realize that she loved him too, I thought was great for character development.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked the episode. I do not like episodes in general, because it's it's a sci-fi convention where you have this split reality. One of them is real, one of them is not. Well, of course, we tune in every week. We know what the real world is. It's the TARDIS. That's a given. I mean, you're not going to unwrite 40 years of history and say, no, it's just Amy in her little pocket, and none of the rest of this has happened. But I never felt the real implications from that. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe I'm too cerebral from the standpoint of, you're not going to pull the wool over my eyes on this one. Maybe I just couldn't get carried away by the story. I thought it was interesting with how it was done, and I liked the transitions, that they were almost really? We got to fall asleep again? I mean, it's just, they were as frustrated with it as we were. It
Yeah,
seemed like,
and that
you
was
know.
frustrating about the episode was, okay, oh, here we go. We're
It,
falling asleep
wasn't
again.
just a
Yeah.
snap, and all of a sudden
And
we're in this
so
other,
we're
you
here,
know,
yeah.
that we have to pass
Was
out.
telegraphed to us that
Well, and then the fact
the
that
next world is taking over.
that and when they pass out, it puts them in danger too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a nice
That
added element
did
to it.
help add to it. The reveal that the Dream Lord character is this persona, not even persona, that this what if factor within the Doctor, this darkness, that made everything that had come before so worth it. That was just the
payoff
ultimate
is
payoff.
the best part of this.
And the closest I can come to realizing it is there was a line written in Goldeneye, the James Bond film, where Sean Bean asks Pierce Brosnan, 006S007, he says, "Do the vodka martinis drown out the screams of all the men you've killed?" And it's nothing. It doesn't really mean anything. But in the context of Bond, that is a huge question to ask that character.
Yeah.
For such a one-dimensional cardboard cut-up action hero. That really brings a whole bunch of wide-ranging implications into it for him. I felt this episode with that premise really
Well,
did that
especially
for the
in
Doctor, in my mind.
in the fact of the previous episode, the Queen vampire space fish ends up going and killing herself, and then her entire species essentially dies off. And it's according to her, it's the Doctor's fault,
Right.
and all that blood is on his hands, which makes the next episode really hit home that darkness that he has.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's the way that it was handled, the weight of it, that Matt Smith, when the Doctor realizes what's going on, and they have the okay, it was just this bit of space pollen, and it's psychic, and it's, no worries, we're all safe. He plays it in such a way that he tries to kind of blow it off, but he was disturbed by it, and very much rightly so. But he's trying not to worry them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it really brought
Playing
those,
it off, especially when he looks in the reflection.
Yeah.
And we see the Dream Lord. And it's you don't know if that's real or not, or if that's just to telegraph to us that, the Dream Lord's still there. I mean, that darkness is still in him. And I think that's an artistic choice that they use.
Yeah, I
but
would agree.
just, the uncertainty as he looks into that mirror.
And that really brought home Rory's comment about you make your companions want to impress you. That's just one added layer to that whole dynamic.
It was a
of their relationship.
calculated effort to put these two episodes together and to build that dynamic. Because, like I say,
Well, and especially since there was no bigger arching story other than character development. In
correct,
this one.
and that's what it is. And because you introduce Rory, which we'd been introduced to Rory before, but it's time to develop Rory's character now.
Right.
And so we start that off with the Vampires of Venice, and then we go even deeper and develop that more. And what better vehicle than to have Amy and Rory already married and expecting a child in the future?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that there's no better way to say speed this along and show where they're at this point. They're comfortable. They're settled down in this little community. She's having a baby. She's Little Miss Homemaker. He's the quote-unquote doctor, as they call him, although he's still a nurse. But he's, the town physician, essentially, helping all these older people. And so, just really to take that dynamic and be able to say, okay, we need to really put them together and show that they have developed this relationship. So set it 5 years in the future, and then make that choice very difficult for her.
Yeah.
Whereas if it had just been her making that choice after the short time we knew Rory, it wouldn't have worked.
Oh,
but
yeah.
by placing it in that time, in that spectrum, it worked well. And I thought that was an excellent choice by the writers to go that route.
Very much so.
I realized we forgot to mention something rather important from the Vampires of Venice, is the fact that the space fish went, I have a hard time saying that for some reason, came to Earth because of the crack.
Oh,
And they're running from
the silence, which...
Well, the crack opened
Yeah.
up, and then they saw multiple cracks.
Yes.
And they're running from the silence.
Yes.
And jumped into another crack.
Yes, and we're not going to talk about the silence much, and we're not going to talk much about the crack, except for what we'll talk about here.
Yeah.
But
that was worth mentioning.
this is something that we're going to revisit here at the end of the series, and even into Series 6, because I think there's some stuff that's left unopened. So
Having heard some other podcasts,
well, and you listened or you watched
and the
Christmas Carol.
special,
yeah, and she talked about the silence and
yeah,
that as
and
well.
the song she sang at the end was even about the silence.
Talks about the silence, yeah. But I don't want to delve too deep into that until we get on. But I think the crack there's the other thing that we're seeing here is that the crack's becoming very important.
Very important
in this series, especially as we move on to The Hungry Earth.
The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, the most ambitious drilling project ever reaches far below Earth's crust, but the ground is fighting back. And the Earth faces the dawn of a new age of harmony or the start of its final war. So, I was kind of about this episode until they revealed that, okay, it's not literally the ground fighting back, it's these...
It's what calls the ground its home.
Yeah. It's what came before humans, which I thought was really interesting. And that whole dynamic of how they were there and then had to go underground, and then, as they called them, the apes took over.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. Another thing I noticed in this episode, as well as maybe 2 episodes ago, Amy gets put in a place of trouble and she has to get rescued, or has to rescue herself, which is kind of a plot development or a plot trope that I'm not a big fan of. I mean, if you go back to Buffy and watch throughout almost all of Buffy, either Cordelia had to be rescued in almost every single episode, or Dawn had to be rescued, and those, or at least a large portion of those episodes, and those are the weakest episodes.
Well, you're going to hate the classic series.
It's just, well, and I can excuse it a bit more in older series, because that's more of a product of the time, but in today's society, where we have such strong
female
women
characters, yes.
and female characters on shows, to have to go and constantly rescue
You don't
them,
have to have the damsel in distress. You've got equal partners and very strong female leads. Yeah. But then again, that harkens back, and this is just the fanboy in me, is it harkens back. That felt very classic to me, that the companion's in peril and that the doctor has to go to rescue her. And I think that's one of the the Solarian episodes. I was more worked up about these episodes because it was another classic monster coming back. It was going to be a new look and a new take on a classic villain, which, ironically enough, and I can't remember, I don't think they even call them Solarians by name.
They do.
They do.
They do a couple times.
All right.
Most of the time they call them Homo Reptilia.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, and I like. I like the fact that they, which they almost allude to the fact that by the Doctor calling them that, it's even a little more arrogant that, that's what's being used, because that's not what they would consider themselves anyway. But so this was one of those. We talked about the dynamic changing in back when we talked in our 2 episodes ago about Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, and that there was a dynamic change in the style of episode.
A tonal shift.
Yeah, there you go. That didn't happen when we watched the next 2-parter, which was Flesh and Stone and Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. This time, however, I thought there's a huge tonal shift between The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, because we've got this scenario setting up, and of course it's character development. We have to introduce the viewer to the Solarians. We've got to introduce the viewer to this mining community, to these people that we're going to be surrounded with, who are going to be our quote-unquote heroes or good guys in the film. And then to start the second episode, Cold Blood, with a narrative from the
Elder,
yeah. Setting up this whole, this was a pinnacle time in history, and that 2 species came together. that seemed so out of place, especially leaving it where they left it.
Yeah, because Amy was on that table.
If you watched these two back to back,
which I did,
there is no feel of a divide of a cliffhanger. They do go back after that, after the opening credits, and resolve our cliffhanger ending. But it was such a shift in the tone of that episode that it almost bothered me that happened that way. And I can think that was the worst of it, other than the fact that Amy and this mining gal are going to be the two people that hash out the treaty between the Solarians and usher in the new age of Solarian and human interaction. On it, that seemed a little...
Which, and I thought was
the
clever.
Doctor seemed to champion it way too much.
And I thought it was clever in the fact that they ended up not...
Yeah, appropriately.
And would wake up 1,000 years later.
Yeah, they weren't ready for this dynamic.
There's no way humans were.
That was good. I'll tell you what I really did like was the wounded Solarian that they've captured, and the sister. Was she her sister? Yeah, that is still in the society, and she's the head of the army or in charge of the army, and saying if the sister dies, you die. I mean, it was a neat dynamic that we've got a prisoner, and we've got to come to terms on how we're going to settle this. And her being headstrong and military, and the elder being diplomatic and very pacifist. I liked that element there, and the struggle that they're having within their own society, not let alone the fact that they feel like they're being threatened by the humans above. I liked that, and I think that played out well. We've moved along here to Cold Blood, but that episode plays out well as well with the elder's decision that the time isn't right, that he's going to release this gas that, essentially if the Solarians don't get back into their pods, they're going to die.
Yeah.
And what an interesting choice for him to make for the efforts of peace with the humans so that it can be they can try again later, is to come to the verge of creating genocide within a species if they don't react and move back into their pods for another 1,000 years. I like that. I thought that was an interesting aspect of it as well. So there's things about the two episodes that finally balance it out and make it a good overall story arc for me. Didn't hate it, and I liked it. I say this was set up for me because classic monster coming back. I had most recently seen the Sea Devils probably within a year or two before this, and I really like that story. As kind of corny and hokey as it is, and the Master's in that episode, and I like his portrayal in that, and we've got Unit, and seeing all of that and thinking, okay, how are they going to reimagine the Solarians and still keep them in the quasi-continuity of what happened before? And it was set up so much that the first episode, when we see the tongue come out and it has the poison, I thought, oh, that's an interesting dynamic. We hadn't seen that before. The look of the Solarians is different enough that you still recognize that they're Solarians, but it's modernized enough, and I liked that.
Well,
but then when
and
this
their
first
explanation for it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that it's an off branch of the original
right,
Solarian.
And it's not. Yeah, exactly. And which I think, if I remember right, the Sea Devils even is a cousin to the Solarians as well.
Right.
And so it's like you've got this kind of I think you've got like this kind of family tree that they're separated enough by look and appearance that they explain it well and it makes sense. But I was so set up to that when I watched the first episode, The Hungry Earth, it didn't really satisfy me until we got to the end of Cold Blood. And I said that's why I think it kind of ebbed and flowed for me, but overall. And of course, the finale of Cold Blood was incredible. Which let's talk about next. But let's hear Sean's take on these two stories.
Hungry Earth, I really liked. It set it up, and it was very classic Who. We've got an isolated area. We've got a new group of characters
for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. We're not downtown London. We're off in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
But we've got this new group of characters, and you immediately pick up on, you're cool. I hope you make it. I hope you make it. I don't know about you. You're probably dead. And, you just instantly start making these associations with these people. And the Doctor shows up, and obviously, there's going to be a problem. Let's go look. And so they go and look. and it felt very. It was horror Fang Rock, Robots of Death. It felt very much like one of these old school episodes that there was this unseen evil lurking out there, or in this case under there, that was going to gobble you up at any point in time. And then the companion gets taken, and okay, yeah, cool, we're there, because that's, seriously, dude, that's like, the companion has two jobs. One is to be captured, and then thus needing rescued by the Doctor. The other is to stand there and listen as he explains the plot to them, and thereby us. And we get that exposition. That's really what your job is if you're traveling with the Doctor, is to get into trouble and need rescued.
She's more than that.
Well, they do that now because people expect that now. But
Well,
that's, I think when you
But
get,
that's why it makes it feel like a classic
Yeah.
too, and I see that's where you're coming from.
when you get on board the TARDIS, they make you sign a waiver that says this is what your job is going to be as a member of this crew. You got to go get into trouble and then wait for him to explain stuff. That's maybe we'll make coffee later, but that's pretty much it. But it just the whole episode really felt that, and I really enjoyed it. And yes, there were moments that started to kind of stretch that plausibility. This kid's really going to run off into the middle of the darkness, and they conveniently find his headphones, and okay, yeah, I'll let that go. And then there are the other moments that, wow, by the time the two-parter ended, I was ashamed to call myself a member of the human race.
Oh yeah,
Quite honestly,
it's certainly a statement. Yeah,
Yeah, it really is.
There was such hope that, and what the Doctor said, with bounding around that table, this is your time. This is the opportunity to do this right. Don't blow it. And then obviously we've got Mom upstairs killing aliens, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? Don't leave her in the room. Are you crazy? And you knew how this was going to pan out. It was,
which is interesting because you think that they set this up nicely, that the grandfather
Is going to be the one.
is going to be the one, because he is very old-fashioned. He's very seems to be very closed-minded. I think I saw it coming because it was almost too convenient that he was that type, and they were trying to play it off that he was going to be the one that would be the one that makes that choice, and it ends up being the mother. But it was a nice effect, and I like the fact that they went that route with it.
but just, okay. So she's killed the sister now. We're hosed. We're just royally hosed. And then they cut back to the negotiating table, and well, maybe we could give you the Sahara Desert because nobody lives there. Seriously?
Yeah.
That's the best we've got to offer? The desert? Nobody lives there for a reason. It's a desert. I mean, yeah, they're reptiles, but let's not be insulting. I mean, the whole time, and man, we suck.
Yeah.
It really, really bothered me that humanity was portrayed, because I really liked these characters. When the episode opened, I was really excited by the potential of this particular group dynamic and how well they played off each other and the situation they were put in with danger and then how they had to work to get out of it. Something about that really, really appealed to me. And then the second episode comes along and just destroys all hope of that being cool. I mean, the whole thing was like, damn. It just really, really... Now, having said all of that, and I can't remember her name now, but the doctor character who wound up going down with the Doctor, and perfect.
Oh,
she was so cool.
She was,
and almost, maybe she's companion material.
You almost really wanted her to get in the TARDIS with them and go,
because she would have been okay with it, and maybe not a full-time thing, maybe just for a couple episode arc or something. But you just really wanted that. And then for her to make that choice at the end to stay because of her relationship with the old man, who by the time that episode ended, he'd kind of done a complete 180, starting off as the almost Archie Bunker character, but less lovable, and then coming around to he almost reminded me of Wilfred. By the end of that, with the way that was going, I agree with you. I liked the internal political struggle with the Solarians. I wasn't sure at first how the physical change was going to strike me, because I'd seen a spoiler pick ahead of time that this was the new makeup, and I was like, well, that doesn't look like a Sea Devil. I mean, it's just... But again, well explained, giving us that scientific technical background to say, this is the reason why this looks a little different. It's like, oh, okay, cool, I'll go with that. I mean, they very, very tried to make it accessible. and open. And so I liked that.
Although, you pointed out the fact that the spoiler clip, and we knew that it was coming. I think that's part of the reason that it didn't. I can see where you're coming from, where it felt like Horror Frame Rock, or it felt like some of these like scarier enemy, unknown enemy. The problem I had coming into this is I knew it was under the ground. I knew what was coming. I knew what they were essentially. And I knew the mystery and the background of them, and so it cheapened that from me. And maybe that's because I spoiled myself ahead of time.
Well,
I didn't
but for new viewers,
maybe it worked for them. And
only for the new series,
right? I'm looking at it from an old pair of eyes, a classic series pair of eyes. But yeah, since I knew it coming, it didn't have that effect on me, which is fine because if it worked for a new viewer, terrific. But
there are certain things that I think are going to always happen whenever we get to a research station or
a moon base,
or a drilling platform, something where humanity is doing something where we've never done this before.
Right.
Well, wow, that's a horrible idea because something bad is going to happen. After all, he showed up, and if the doctor's there, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just so it's an automatic. I really like those. Yay, go humanity because we're going to do something cool here. But we're going to
screw it up somewhere.
Yeah, we're going to screw it up. And I was really, really, I don't know why. I knew that in a way they had to maintain that status quo, that the negotiations were going to break down, and that this was going to fall through. It just you had to get back to that. No, this is not happening. But wouldn't that have been cool? After everything that Russell T Davies set up with. The aliens are out there. Everybody knows that they're out there. We've kind of blown that whole nugget open now, where it's acceptable to have. But they've kind of reversed it. But
Stephen Moffat is fixing that, I think, with Series 5.
Because
that's
Amy doesn't remember
she doesn't remember the Daleks. The Doctor at one time mentions, a 60-foot Cyberman walking through downtown London, and no one remembers it. I mean, it's just those little things you could tell, and I think the crack is a
big part of it.
Yeah, a big part of that.
Very,
and
very
Amy's point in time being a nexus, and
Yeah.
Let's move into the crack here.
Before we go to the crack, there were a couple things I found really interesting. Or one thing I found really interesting, one thing I found I thought was hilarious. The fact that the doctor called the old man Lad. I really enjoyed that nice little touch to it.
That was good.
And it's the little things about the doctor that I truly appreciate. And then the whole speech he gives as he's rallying for the conference and hashing out a plan and negotiations. And I found it interesting, having been a new viewer, not knowing any of this, the fact that some points in time are set in stone. You can't do anything to change them, but there are other ones that you can. I found that very interesting.
That's good. That's good because, I just watched a episode and there's a very fine point about one of the nexuses that can't be changed, and that's interesting that you even picked up on that in the Matt Smith era. I had forgotten until you said that, and now that you picked up on that, and that was telegraphed well enough for a viewer coming along at Matt Smith, it renews my refreshment, especially since we did Christmas Carol, where time is being rewritten, and we've said in episodes that time can be rewritten, but there's at least that. Well, there's at least that attempt to say there are nexuses that cannot be changed.
It's time locked, isn't that the actual term?
Yeah, time locked. Yeah, sure.
This moment is time locked. That you cannot.
I believe this. And in fact, even in Waters of Mars, the one I just watched, I believe he alludes to it as time locked. Yeah. So,
as for the ending, it blew my mind. I did not expect that to happen. I did not expect for them to kill Rory, which, having seen the Christmas Carol, I know he's not really dead, so I'm really interested to see how
he's really dead,
or how they bring him
he's
back
really
on
most
the show.
Sincerely dead.
How they bring him back on the show. I'm really interested to see that, and the fact that he got swallowed by the crack, so now Amy had to fight to remember. And I'm trying to remember now if the doctor gave her the ring or not at the end of the episode.
Not yet.
I didn't think so.
It was sitting on the console.
And he pocketed it, right? No, he said it on the console
He's-
at that
he's-
point.
he,
Yeah.
he said it on the TARDIS console,
Yeah,
but it
that's
has
correct.
not made its reappearance to her yet.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Because I was thinking that at the end, I was like, we'll just give her the ring and she'll remember. She'll have a constant reminder on her finger. That way she won't forget him. That didn't happen. But then when they go in at the very end, right before the Doctor goes in, and it's what he pulled out from the crack was a part of the TARDIS. I was, whoa! That means the TARDIS blows up. Obviously, the TARDIS can regenerate and change, just like the Doctor, but the fact that we're heading in a direction where we're going to see the TARDIS explode, because obviously these cracks are from a nexus that can't be changed, at least it appears. Just, I was completely caught up.
That was a mind-blowing moment when he pulled that out of there, and you were just like, what is it? And he pulls the handkerchief away, and as soon as you saw the lettering, I was like, oh! Because I didn't have to have him hold it up to the side of the ship and show us.
Exactly.
Well, he did that,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I couldn't remember if it was out of the next episode, but I didn't need that. I
Yeah.
knew instantly what that was, but putting it up there was just. I mean, it was that much more
Impactful. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I would agree. When he pulled that out, my mind just raced. It was like, whoa, what? Why? Why is that in there? What's going to happen here? What's going on? And that I can see now, remembering my reaction to that, and not having the next 4 episodes to finish, how difficult it would be for me in your position to
Yeah.
just plow on through
I
the
wanted
rest
to
of the
just
series now.
keep
yeah.
on going and watch the next one as soon as I finish that. And really, it had a season 3 of Lost season finale feeling to me,
Yeah.
because that finale, which you're up to this point now.
yes.
Spoiler alert if anybody hasn't watched it.
No, we're not going to spoil We're not going to
Okay,
spoil
we won't
alert
spoil.
Lost. No, we're going to spoil Lost.
We're
We're
gonna
going to
spoil-
spoil alert Lost.
Well, just in case, you wouldn't want me to tell you this.
I'm only up to midway through season 4, so
No.
Yeah. But
We're only keeping back spoilers from Sean. We're not going to.
the fact that whole, what we thought was a flashback in Lost was a flash forward, my reaction to that was so... It might have been a little bigger on Lost because I had a bit more invested into it, but that was my kind of reaction for the end of this episode.
it was a huge moment, especially for not being a cliffhanger. I mean, realistically,
Well, no, the story was resolved.
The story's
yeah.
resolved. We're done. It's not
Rory's
the end of the
dead.
season. Well, Rory's poor Rory.
Rory's dead.
Rory's dead, and
Which is why I mentioned earlier that I was a little concerned that, okay, in the past 3 episodes, they've killed him twice. I'm like, oh, please don't make this be a theme to remind Amy of how much she loves him.
Yeah.
oh my
I don't
God,
wanna-
they killed Rory! You bastards!
I didn't want a Kenny type situation.
Which, the Kenny situation reminds me of Torchwood references with Captain Jack, but that's a whole nother. That's for a whole other discussion. But the oh my God, you killed Captain Jack.
That's almost being A, science fiction, and B, Doctor Who. You almost can't take any death seriously in the
Having
show.
watched Lost and Heroes and a bunch of other sci-fi, Battlestar Galactica,
Or any daytime soap in the United States.
oh yeah. so I never really take any death until I really see them buried, or even not necessarily that sometimes. So I've always tried to keep a mind open that, okay, they could come back.
It's definitely they can come. I mean, Spock did it.
I should say, people died in science fiction until Spock came back in the films, and from then on, everybody thought, "Well, we've got a license to bring people back now. We just got to come up with a clever way to do it."
And as long as they have a clever way, I'm okay with it.
Well, in Doctor Who especially, what you're dealing with, we've got regeneration, so the Doctor dies constantly and comes back as the people. Well, not constantly, but 11 times now. 10 deaths, 11 guys. We've killed people and then gone back and rewritten
the
time.
fact that it's a time travel show, they could go back and pick up Rory before they go and pick him up the
I mean,
first
there's
time.
always the potential for something like that to happen. So you're never 100% sold on the idea of, well, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
Unless
But-
it's one of the introductees to the episode. If it was one of the people in the drilling station that had passed on, you were like, you're gone.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because you're cannon fodder for
You're a
whatever
red shirt.
monsters.
You're a red shirt.
Yeah.
You're a red shirt.
Which and what concerns me a little bit, I'm sure they're going to figure out a way, is that part of the impact of the episode that they killed him wasn't so much that, oh well, it's a sci-fi time travel show, they can bring him back. I didn't think that until after, because the crack swallowed him and Amy ended up forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
That concerned me because I was really starting to like Rory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, Roy does a really... When he's initially introduced, you're kind of like, meh. And as they continue to bring him back and do a little bit more with him, he really grows on you. He becomes a very interesting character. He becomes a very well-liked character, in my mind.
Well, and he becomes the character that the audience can relate to, especially the male audience, where, okay, we can try to be the Doctor, but we're not going to be. But we
Yeah.
can be Rory, and we can
Right.
get Amy.
Exactly.
We frequently are Rory.
Yeah.
If we can be Rory, there's a chance we can get Amy.
Exactly.
We don't have to do what the Doctor does to get Amy.
Yeah.
There's a chance we can get Amy. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Just completely off subject in a way, but speaking of random deaths of introductory characters, you just watched Horror of Fang Rock.
Uh-huh.
I had watched it recently. Were you as surprised as I? Because I'd forgotten a lot of it. I remember liking the episode as a kid and thinking that, wow, this is really cool, and so I bought it and watched it again. I was really surprised that, like, everybody dies in that episode.
No.
No,
that's
that's like...
and it really feels like maybe even a Hammer horror film. It's bleak. It's one location. It's peril through the whole thing, and everybody dies except for our heroes. You know, I think wasn't as surprising to me was the fact that everybody died, because it felt like one of those dark horror movies, and that was the implication, was to make it horror in a lighthouse. But I think the one thing that troubled me the most is that the body count's very high, and the Doctor and Leela get in the TARDIS as though, oh well, on to our next adventure. You know, all these there's no remorse for, well, darn, these people died. Oh, we're alive, let's go, you know, and run off. And I think that troubled me more about that episode than anything.
I wonder if there's a conscious effort with the newer series to maybe
Keep the kill count down?
Yeah, maybe they're keeping the death count down, because I remember a whole lot of episodes from the newer reign that have had body counts to that extent. And maybe Horror Fang Rock's a bad example, because it is a very, very horror-related episode.
And intentionally done that way. I don't know.
That's certainly a thing with Doctor Who, is killing people
That's just
off.
it. Something that surprised me as a youth, because I grew up watching, you know, the A-Team and Knight Rider and, you know, all these action shows on primetime TV, that nobody died. When the van flipped over, when the car flipped over in the A-Team, and the people crawled out. I mean, they blatantly showed us the people you know. That was to get the show to stay on, past the censor board. There's no deaths in the A-Team. There's no deaths in Knight Rider.
We're going to shoot a bunch of guns, but not
right,
actually hit
exactly.
anybody.
Nobody gets shot, but there's gun battle galore. So to be introduced to Doctor Who at that same range of time when I'm watching all these other shows, and people actually die on this show, and I don't want it to sound dark and make me sound slightly disturbed, but I think it was refreshing to see the fact that it was reality that people die. I mean, that's part of life, is death, and to see a science fiction television show deal with that, and like it was normal and every day, I think that was one of the things that appealed to me about Doctor Who. And I think you're right. In this new series, there are deaths. People die.
Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, the body count's tremendous in Voyage of the Damned. I mean,
that's true.
Different
type
you
of
go
episode,
back,
but...
if you go back and you look, but see, that's also mirroring disaster films. That's mirroring Tower Inferno,
Right.
You know, Poseidon Adventure, where the body count is high in those disaster films. But if you go back through the series, you do see a lot of death. But yeah, this might have been, I don't know. It may have been tamed down, and it's almost like it's red shirt death now, as opposed to main character death, which we get with Rory in this one, and it's a little troubling.
Maybe that's the reason they did it. Maybe knowing that we're going to kill Rory here at the end of this episode, they kept the rest of the family unit, if you will, together. And, well, yeah, Grandpa's got the whatever virus, but he'll be okay. They'll revive him later, and she's going to stay with him, and, you know.
Speaking of death count, even Waters of Mars is...
Again, another isolated, remote. Yeah. We're doing something we've never done before.
And very horror fame rock, where it's everything happens in one location. The menacing enemy, you're trapped within the base in peril. I mean, I think that's typical for a lot of those. But
of course, you know, you go back to like Doomsday in season 2, and there were, how many people got wiped out that even if it was off camera,
right,
just because of the sheer, hey, it's a war, and
yeah, no, absolutely.
So I don't know. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing for it to feel so classic Who, that there really wasn't a lot of, you know, we killed off the alien and we killed off Rory, and that was really pretty much it. Yeah.
So, well, 2 of the aliens.
Well, 2 of the aliens.
Yeah.
But that other one had it coming.
There's death, and then there's deserved death.
I have to admit, I was really hoping that one of the Solarians would have yelled, "Get your damn paws off me, you dirty ape!"
That would have been awesome.
They refrained, and part of me is glad for it, but part of me is like, "Oh, missed opportunity."
Might have been a misguided homage. We're 4 episodes away from the end of the series. We're 2/3 of the way into the series. What are your impressions overall of this series so far? You've already said that Matt Smith's your doctor. You love Matt Smith. Talk a little bit about the dynamic that we have going before we get into the last 4.
I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, my opinions of the season hasn't changed too much from what I've said before. Aside from the ending of this last episode and the really strong character development of Amy's Choice, I mean, they're good episodes. They're not, oh my god, episodes. So, the bar is still pretty high for me. And of course, once I see Stephen Moffat's name go through the Vortex as written by, I'll probably be a little bit more excited about those episodes, because those are the ones that really stood out to me so far.
I'm very encouraged about that, because I think by far the next 4 episodes are some of the strongest of the series.
Oh, that's
good.
Yeah,
and they really it hits the ground running in this next episode, and just does not ever pale or drop off from there. So, I think you're gonna. That's encouraging that you've said that, because hopefully I'm not way off base here. But it will never ramp down from this point to the end of the series.
That's good to know.
Season,
even Lodger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Really? Yeah. Not that I didn't like it. I'm curious to know what.
Which I've heard references to the Pandorica, so I'm interested to see what that is. They've even referenced it in the show with River.
No, River said, asking him, has the Pandora. Have you been to Pandorica yet? Yeah.
And I had heard reference in another podcast before about wanting to get a prop Pandorica as a paperweight or something like that. And so, like, I'm definitely intrigued. I may end up watching more, finishing off the season before we actually record next week's episode, which won't feature any of that.
Right. The intention now, I think, based on our poll results, is I think we're going to try to procure some copies of the previous Solarian episodes. We'll walk through those and give those a review. Perhaps that'll be our next recording, and then after that, we'll revisit Season 5 again.
Well, maybe we should put that up for a poll. What do you think, fans? Should we keep Keith hand-tied away from the DVDs so that he can't finish Season 5?
I don't think so. I think he's pretty well... If we can remember episodes we've seen removed for several months, I think going 1 week in between for Keith will be no problem whatsoever.
But of course, they'll all be blended together in my mind, so it'd be harder to.
Well, that's true.
I don't know. He was ready to tear through it now. As somebody who mainlines shows, this is really rough on him.
That's true.
Because he's getting.
He's having his withdrawals right now.
Although I mainline shows until I catch up, and then I have to wait a bit.
So then he goes through the little fits.
Because then I can't wait to mainline him again. I have to get my weekly doses of my shows. So.
But then by that time he's mainlining another series. So
yeah, I got something else to preoccupy me.
Well, the beauty of Doctor Who is there are 40 years of history for you to mine while we wait for season 6.
I'll be a sponge.
You won't be able to mainline the entire series because we're talking 20-some seasons, right? So,
forever.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate me.
Interesting tidbit.
I'll stop playing Rock Band. I'll stop playing other games. I'll just
plowing through.
2 interesting tidbits. I need to post this on Twitter or one of the communication things that we have set up. We've been playing a little bit of Rock Band 3, and I have to throw out an apology to Glenn because I did not invite Glenn to the latest thing. Partly because I knew he was going to be busy, and I thought you were going to be busy. Friday night. That's why we don't record on Friday nights anymore. I didn't want to.
Friday, yeah.
I did not want to be the little devil on the shoulder going, "You should come play Rock Band with your friends."
Yeah, the angels over there going, "You should stay home with your family."
Yeah, so I didn't want to put you in that unenviable situation because I know you and I know what you would have picked. So for all your bravado about, I wouldn't go in the TARDIS. Yeah, you would. But we've been playing Rock Band, and I'm fairly certain with Rock Band 3 that you can do an entire band of doctors. The costuming and the character choices are such that you could probably pull off some pretty good facsimiles.
You do that because that's your challenge.
That's
your challenge.
It's a side project that I'm going to put together and see if I can get some photos.
We want photos. We want caps. We want still caps.
There is one.
Oh, there is a bow tie.
I have to unlock it. It's called, the outfit's called the Professor.
We want screen caps. We'll put them up. We'll put them in the show notes. We'll put links to them.
So for those of you that are that geeky that you just think, what could be cooler than Doctor Who? Doctor Who singing on stage in a rock band.
I mean, clearly there's some geekdom that bleeds over there now because in Rock Band 2,
ever since
there was
Rock Band 1,
there was the Dr. Watt outfit,
which is still there.
Is it okay? So because you've got the long scarf and not quite the doctor's scarf, but it's clearly there. Never found an appropriate hat, but
there is a closer hat now.
In 3.
Yeah, in 3.
Never found the appropriate hat.
But I'm pretty sure we can do Tom Baker with the scarf and the hat. I'm pretty sure we can pull off a decent David Tennant with one of the suit and a tie and 3D glasses. That are available. There's the Professor outfit, which I think we can probably pull off using the emo haircut and get a Matt Smith.
He doesn't have emo hair.
Well, that's what it was called. You have emo hair.
I don't have emo hair.
You do have emo hair. It's kind of emo.
It's
not long enough to.
We'll have pictures of Keith's hair. You see, send us feedback. Maybe that'll be the poll for the week.
I'll change my Twitter picture, and we'll see if I have emo hair.
Keith have emo hair?
It's not like it's combing over into my face, or
it's not.
It's got potential to come over into your face.
I need to get a haircut.
It's the predecessor.
Well, don't do it until we take a picture and ask people if you have emo hair.
And then Christopher Eccleston because of the leather jacket T-shirt.
Oh
thing.
yeah, so and obviously the haircut.
So they're much more newer doctors. And then what was the other one? Pertwee.
There's no
a frilly shirt.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not going to get a
Technicolor coat.
Our cricket outfit or
probably not.
No vest with question marks or
the ugly sweater.
And certainly no patchwork.
We might be able to pull off Doctor Who, the movie version of Sylvester McCoy's outfit.
Okay,
that was a little toned down.
Well, it was much more subdued and Earth-like. So
so your challenge should not be not only the costumes, but get the facial features.
Yeah,
right.
The facial features are important.
That'll be the challenge.
That'll be the real challenge. But I think it's doable. So for those of you, we're going to try this as an experiment. And again, if those of you who are out there playing Rock Band right now have already booted it up and started work on your band, send us the pictures. Because,
absolutely. We'd love to see them.
If you can save me the effort, I'll go with...
Well, we'd love to see them, and we'll post them on the blog.
Absolutely.
If you play Rock Band, that's your challenge as the listener as well. If you play Rock Band 3 specifically, because it sounds, from what Sean's saying, is it's much more customizable and the outfits are available. If you play Rock Band 3, that's your challenge. If you'd like to send us your photos, you can post them on our Facebook page, which is Traveling the Vortex. Send them to us on Twitter at Travel Vortex,
or you can send them to us individually on Twitter. Vortex Keith,
Vortex Sean,
and Glenn _Bartlett. And
One of these things is not like the others.
no, I'm the odd man out. I'm telling you, I'm patting my followers. And if you'd like to send us email, go ahead and drop that to travelingthevortex@gmail.com. Of course, you can visit the blog and post comments on travelingthevortex.blogspot.com. And, send us a link to that if you've got access to a place to house the photos. Drop us a line there, send us a link to them. We will post those on our blog, and we want to see what kind of submissions we get. I think they'll be fun.
Yeah. And check the show notes if you want to send voicemail. We have a Google Voice number. One of these times we will write it down.
Never have with us when we start recording.
And we'll be able to say it. Maybe next week.
It's a relatively easy number. But
We're 4 episodes in, and we have a microphone stand. I think we're
that's
moving
true.
along.
We
making
finally
progress.
have
Fantastic
a solid
progress.
microphone stand. Eventually, we'll have 3 mics, but
And what microphone stand are we using?
it's a rock band.
It's a rock band microphone stand.
No, we told you. We warned you. We're gamers.
I don't remember what the other point is. I was going to bring up the other item of note. So,
Well, with that, let's end the show.
Okay.
All right. Well,
good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
cheers.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.